So I'm Todd, chair of Interaction Program, have been a faculty at ArtCenter for 20 or so odd years. I'm an alumni of the school in the product design program way back at a time before there was such a thing as an interaction design major. We launched undergrad Bachelor of Science Interaction Design. Oh, let me go to the next slide. So our department has 3 programs. The undergrad Bachelor of Science Interaction Design, which you see in the center, is our original program that was called Interaction Design. And it dates back 15, 16 or so odd years. And from its inception was designed to have lots of curricular overlap with things like product design, graphic design, to a certain extent, some projects in transportation design, areas where interaction design has natural overlap. So yeah, all told, we've got quite a bit going on. Each program has a very distinct feel. However, I would say the exploration of the relationship between people and technology, which we heard about in that previous presentation, we all do that in various ways in our various programs. The business part of that Venn diagram comes in at points in our curriculum in all of those programs as well. And I would say, and we'll talk about this as we show work, we're really rooted in core human-centered design methodologies and principles, which I think many of us are familiar with through our work, but we have developed, we think at least, a really interesting parallel or overlap with what we call tech-centered research. So our Venn diagram is like human-centered design, tech-centered research. Tech-centered research for us is very much an embrace of the learning through making, which ArtCenter is famous for. You know, that may have traditionally been physical making in the model shop or printing in the archetype press. But in the world of interaction design, that making is sometimes it's algorithmic, sometimes it's code. It's increasingly like game engines and things like that. So we'll get to that with some of the project work, including what Alice will share soon. So I'm going to move through these quickly. So yes, UI, UX research. We have classes that focus on, yes, user experience design, classes that focus on HCI, of course, traditional user interface design, particularly heavy in the first half of the curriculum, although these skills continue to be taught through the curriculum. But what we do is we layer on more experimentation with new and emerging technologies in addition to the human-centered design methodologies and UI, UX focused courses as students progress through the curriculum. So we use way too many tools, platforms, and software to fit on one slide. Many of these you, I'm sure, are familiar with. I'll just point out, and what's not on this slide is Unity and Unreal. Game engines have come into play big time in the last 2 to 3 years, including in projects that actually end up with a screen-based UI at the front end. And ProtoPie, I think Julian will touch upon that, has been a great complement to get our students activating things like voice interfaces, you know, in a testable, interactive way really quickly. So, and I will say, I know we talked about AI earlier, ChatGPT and Copilot and tools like this have one of the positive aspects of the onset of AI has been our students' ability to get code working much, much, much faster than they could before. And so for us, I mean, we're aware of all the pitfalls and we talk about them all the time, but prototypes have been coming to life faster than they ever have. And we saw that change happen literally like the week that ChatGPT came out in our studio classes. It was dramatic. So yes, curricular-wise, so we talk about this a lot, particularly in undergrad classes that focus on UI, UX. You know, part of what we do as designers is we do give things form and shape, and we've always focused on not just skills like typography, graphics, layout for interface, but sketching skills for storyboarding and visualizing interactions. But increasingly, we actually talk to the students about the fact that some of the classes they're taking that make through code to explore form, shape, movement through code directly from the onset. We talk to them in the same way that we talk about composition on a piece of paper or in a sketch, because code is one of our mediums. And I think we learned at some point that we can't talk about it as if it's this totally separate thing that computer scientists do off to the side. Like, we work in various mediums, and that's one of them. And so I think increasingly we've been grounding our teaching in the same like pedagogical practices that we use in other types of studios at ArtCenter, and it seems to be working. And then, yeah, so that tech-centered research component that I was mentioning, this is from one of our students, Lucas Thin, who was doing 3-4 weeks of research with computer vision, just an experiment of how well can I train a model to recognize the ingredients and the actions that I'm taking when cooking a recipe. We've had like students coming up with cooking and recipe app ideas for as long as I've been teaching in the program, but this is the first time that I actually saw a student hooking up a webcam and training a model and being able to have an intelligent conversation about maybe what's realistic and what's not, to start designing interactions around. So that gets exciting when students engage that way. And then real quickly, another core aspect of the ArtCenter curricular approach. ArtCenter is famous for sponsored studios, so we do have industry engagement quite a lot. I'm going to go through this quickly. This is from a recent class sponsored by Volvo Construction Equipment, just an example of one of the student team's project work. But fantastic learning experiences for students. In this particular project, the students were asked to think ahead only 5 to 6 years, so not like too far in the future, but they got a really great briefing from Volvo's research team about where sort of automation is and is not happening in the world of construction equipment. So the ability to sort of treat some actions a little bit like a robot, not necessarily full autonomy, but task specific, switch in and out of autonomy and human-powered operation. So they sort of said, what does this mean for a future of a cab? The cab, not just the interface, but the actual maybe physical layout, human interactions, focus of an operator, communication between the crew. I'll just mention, I was one of the teachers in the class. It was a ton of fun. We got to go to the dealer, drive these things around, talk about what the sales team understands customers value and don't about not just Volvo's equipment, but competitors. And then 2 weeks later, we got to go to this site out in like Rancho Cucamonga and help demo an old like rebar factory. That was pretty interesting, climbing in and out of the machines. Of course, watching the operators work. So this is an example. This was what's called a transdisciplinary class. So it was interaction students, transportation students, product design students, working in teams together. But those site visits, those interviews, the insights that came from that, and the collaboration with the Volvo team was a really amazing educational experience. So this is like a core part of what we do in our upper term studios here at ArtCenter. And then one last example, we also have a short form of this, these 3-day intensives called Design Storms. This was from about maybe a year back. This is the Adobe Creative Suite team, that members of the team that are focused on implementation of AI into the Adobe Creative Suite set of software tools. And actually Alice was part of this. And the students and this Adobe team just had a blast coming up with every imaginable possibility and prototyping it together in the studio for 3 days. So these are the things that, I don't know, they make me excited to work at a place like ArtCenter. Oh, one last plug, and I'll hand it to Julian. Okay, so if anybody's interested, fall and spring, the end of the ArtCenter term, the school puts on what's called graduation show at the Pasadena Convention Center. So every graduating student puts up an exhibition. This is a little bit of footage from a recent interaction room. This will be the end of April in Pasadena. If you have kids or friends that are interested in interaction design or just interested in what's going on with emerging tech, I honestly believe this to be one of the. It's free, right? And you get to talk to the students about their work. It's worth a visit. So if anyone's curious, check the ArtCenter website in April, and we'd love to see you there. So getting into the student work specifically, I'm going to hand it over to Julian to talk about his HCI class. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Todd. Hi, everyone. My name is Julian Scaff. As Todd said, I'm the Associate Chair of our Graduate Interaction Design program. I also teach in our undergraduate program as well. So one of the classes I teach is called HCI for Interaction Design, where we bring more scientific, more empirical methods into the interaction design process. So one of the projects that we did last term for this class was to build a VUI, which is a voice user interface. And so if you're not familiar with this, probably most of you have used one. It's an interface where you talk to the computer and the computer talks back to you, right? And the computer understands what you say, hopefully, right? And with these kinds of interfaces, the interface itself is invisible because the interface is the conversation. The conversation is the UI. And so that means that the information architecture of these systems is really based on the science of conversation analysis, which comes from the field of linguistics. And so we study that field to understand how conversations work and how do you build one that feels naturalistic. And so how do you start a conversation? How do you articulate content, take turns, interrupt each other, correct, et cetera? Now, what we're using to prototype this usually is Protopie. This is one of our prototyping softwares that we use. The reason why we use Protopie for prototyping VUIs is because it has built-in natural language processing libraries. And so we can do this in code, we could do it in Unity actually, but it's just easier and faster to do in Protopie. Protopie also has some other really powerful prototyping features, much more powerful than Figma. You can design in Figma, bring your prototype into Protopie, and then with very little code or no code, you can design really complex algorithmic behaviors. You can control external hardware and do all sorts of things. Natural language processing is one of the features that it has. So this allows our students to build working prototypes much more quickly and get to testing. Now, some of the artifacts, deliverables that you get from a VUI project, first is designing the AI. So this comes after user research, of course, understanding what the user's needs are, mental models. But then it's like, how is the AI going to behave? What's its personality? How does it speak, et cetera? What kinds of sounds and animations does it have? Oftentimes, they have a visual component, not always. Sometimes you have a smart speaker, there's no visual component. But often there's a visual component. There's designing the prompts, and so these are the kinds of words and phrases that the AI understands and the types of responses that it gives. Conversational flow, so this is actually designing scenarios, how to document that using those UML diagrams. That's actually really where most of the VUI design is occurring, is in between the conversation flow and the UML diagrams. And then finally, we build functional prototypes. You can actually talk to the prototype, it talks back to you, and that allows us to get much more effective kind of empirical user testing. So I want to show a few of the projects that we had this last term. This first is a VUI AI for an assistant for hiking, and so this is a sort of an interface for augmented reality glasses that you would use while hiking or doing outdoor activities. This is an example of one of the AI designs. So the students all design and test multiple AIs. We use the format of a user persona to design the AIs. Some of the data points are a little bit different, but that allows us to kind of conceptualize the AI as almost like a human type of actor. Because people tend to sort of treat them, we anthropomorphize them very, very easily. So you can see it has a little description about its personality and also the prompts, how it speaks, the kind of language it uses are sort of important data points there. Some of the UML diagrams, you can't see these very well, but these are basically your scenario flows. And then this is actually the visual UI here. So you're out on a trail, you're taking a hike, you've got a little bit of a heads-up display. In this case, we wanted the heads-up displays to be very subtle because of course the experience is all about being out in nature. Here we have an alert for a difficult trail up ahead. This is a video here just showing the setup of the app. So we had this working as a fully functional on a smartphone. We don't have audio here, so we can't hear the AI talking, but I'm going to show you, you can talk to it. If you say the right things, it will understand you. And then here we are out on the trail. So this is a scenario where the user is mountain biking with a friend. Because in these situations, the user doesn't have use of their hands, they don't want to stop and actually look at a device, they want to be engaged with nature, they can just speak to the AI. And in some cases, the AI will be proactive and give an alert or give the user directions, or even let her know like where her friend is on the trail if they get separated. So that's a little bit of that. This next project is a VUI for automotive, and so Todd mentioned, we have overlap in these other fields, and transportation design is one of them, and that's something that more and more of our students have been getting interested in. We have several alumni now working at BMW, Ford, Hyundai Motors, and some other car companies doing UX or interaction design for automotive, and so quite a bit of interest in this area. So this is an interesting one. This was a VUI for racing enthusiasts who go and rent a car or take their car out on a racetrack that you can rent, and they want to practice their driving skills. And so in this case, the AI assistant is helping the user improve their driving skills. Now, in mission-critical applications like this, like driving a vehicle, where if you make a mistake, you could cause an accident, you could cause a fatality, design for situation awareness is crucial. And this is a whole principle set of methodologies that comes over from the HCI field. And so in these sort of situations, we have to follow these methodologies to ensure that when users are using the interface, they can perceive the important things in the environment, comprehend what their meaning is, and project their future status in order to make safer decisions. So that's kind of at the center of any of these kind of mission-critical applications. This is one of the AI personalities. It actually has several different AI personalities for different types of users, so it's very adaptive in that way. Some of the conversational flows here. In this kind of situation, there were hundreds of conditionals, basically, having to do with driver behavior, what's happening on the racetrack and whatnot. And so lots and lots of conditionals that trigger sort of automatic reactions on the part of the AI. This is a view of the screen, so it's an add-on screen that can be added to a vehicle. It's used a lot in race cars. So this is while you're driving, and here you have Revy is your little voice assistant here you can talk to, and it's got some critical data points. And then the interface changes after the drive. You can actually go back through it when you're parked in your car and go back through all the data analytics and have a conversation with the AI to kind of analyze the drive and work on improving your performance for the next time. And the last project I'll share with you is called Loop Music VUI. And so this is an AI assistant that is designed to allow you to create music through conversations with the AI. So this has several AI avatars that you can interact with here. They all have different personalities, so you can mix and match with them. You can collaborate with all of them if you want. This is one of them, Lewis here, who's a bit more fun and creative. Again, those UML diagrams of how those conversational flows work. And in this, with this application, the students actually got really deep into like, how do you visualize music? And if you're creating music using loops, how do you visualize those music loops and whatnot? So we studied a lot of like DJ software and whatnot, loop making software, Logic Pro and whatnot. And so there are quite a lot of visual explorations of how the visuals and the micro interactions, the animations interact with the voice UI. And even when you're talking or the AI is talking, like things in the interface will move. And so this is one of the explorations here. I really like this, the idea that like sound loops are like little atoms, and you can stick them together like molecules. So that each little molecule is a little song loop with several sounds in it. This is another one where it visualized sounds as these little lights or lines in a radial here, and they kind of pulsate and turn as it plays. This is another visualization I really liked where they used focus or blur to kind of show which part of the sound was playing at that moment. Now, this particular application was a bit more complex. We ran into some trouble trying to do everything that we wanted to do for user testing in ProtoPie. So in this case, we actually coded this in Swift UI. So this we were able to test on iPhones as like a native iPhone app, basically. In this case, one of the students was fluent in Swift, so we were able to turn to this. So that's a little bit about some of the work we've done in the HCI class, and I'm now going to hand it back over to Todd. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. We're going to turn it over to Alice, but we're going to say just a couple of things about the Immersion Lab, which is where Alice has been living a lot of the time at ArtCenter as a student and currently as what's called a postgraduate honors term. So Alice graduated last December and was the recipient. This is a pretty prestigious honor at ArtCenter. We just one student per term is able to have a free term at ArtCenter after they graduate to continue doing really whatever they would like while they're here. So we're happy Alice is still spending a lot of time in our ArtCenter Immersion Lab working on the project that we're about to see. But I wanted to talk about the Immersion Lab just for a minute or two to give a little bit of context. So this is one of our early projects in the Immersion Lab back in that period of time. I lose track of time, but HTC, early VR hype cycle, I don't know, 5 years back. Students experimenting with making interactions in VR more tangible. So you can see we're using prototyping with foam and scale. So the Immersion Lab, so the Immersion Lab at ArtCenter, when it started, it was just a classroom over across the way. We had a sponsored project sponsored by HTC. They donated some equipment and some headsets, and we needed a room to set up VR in. So there was an empty room. We were able to use it, set up the towers at the time that went along with VR. But Jenny Rodenhouse, who is now the director of the Immersion Lab and chair of our undergrad program, at the time was teaching this class, had the foresight to say, well, I want to give this room a more ambitious name and try to hang on to it and try to use it for like emerging tech prototyping in general. So it's not the HTC VR room, it's the Immersion Lab. So it's been around about 10 years. We did the math, it's more than 1,000 students have come through here doing all kinds of projects. We've had some professional collaborations with some of the companies you see on the screen here. What it's really turned into, it's the place that we teach and prototype, and that's the key part when we say teach. The prototyping is an integral part of the teaching. It's not just lectures, although we do some of that. It's a lot of making in this room. So it's turned into new inputs and controls, anything involving spatial interaction, mixed reality, VR, AR, but a lot of mocap and like 3D, 4D scanning. And increasingly, we test and experiment with computer vision or train machine learning models when we have a class or an assignment that focuses on that. The Immersion Lab is where we would teach that. And then that last asterisk is really, really important. Early on in the VR version or incarnation of the Immersion Lab, we were using Unity as our primary sort of development platform for a variety of reasons. It's a game engine. It worked well in VR. There were all kinds of, it was easier to work with. I think Unreal wasn't as big of a competitor at the time, and Unity was gave us a bit more flexibility. Over the last several years, right, the Unity and to a degree Unreal have become an increasing part of the way our students in all of our interaction programs are prototyping and even building interfaces. So for example, a project that may focus on in-car interaction, so screens in a vehicle, increasingly the UI that you may see in the class final has been built in, as a base layer at least, Unity or Unreal. And of course, all of this mixed reality and spatial interaction, we're prototyping through the game engine. And this has really changed the way that we teach. Has anybody worked in Unity? It's like C# based. It's a really steep learning. I've taught classes with Jenny, and Jenny would give me tutorials, and then I would take the tutorials and then show up to class wanting to be able to teach the students really confidently. We would all do a lot of tutorials together. And so this is where, again, like ChatGPT, Copilot have really kicked in, and people like Alice, who have a natural ability to code. But the game engine, if you can get over that initial learning curve, the things that you can prototype, simulation, spatial awareness, environments that we can simulate actual real-world environments in VR. We had students doing this warehouse safety project where they actually built a whole warehouse with simulations of like forklifts and humans running around in order to test their safety gear in VR built in Unity. And this is stuff that we would have never been able to do at ArtCenter even 5 years ago. So the game engine has become a core component of the way that we teach, the ability to prototype and test and evaluate many of the interaction design projects coming out of the program. So Alice, I am going to switch over. I'm going to hand you the mic, and let's go ahead and to introduce a project called Wishcraft. And Alice, as you present, I want to remind everyone, because we see this at our grad show a lot of times when our students are demonstrating, like for example, a Unity prototype or a live interaction. There's a real tendency with undergraduate design projects to imagine it's like a click-through demo or a simulation. What you're going to see is it's functional every step of the way, and it's demonstrable, and that gets us excited. And so I just wanted to put that note out there before I turn it over to Alice. Okay. But thank you, Alice, for sharing Wishcraft.
Hello everyone, I'm Alice Lee. I am a ArtCenter Interaction Design alumni, and also I'm currently doing my 9th term's honors. Also, I am the resident at the Immersion Lab upstairs. And the project I'm gonna present today is called Wishcraft. It is an AI-powered XR application that enables users to create and also interact with the 3D environment using natural gestures and voice command. And I create Wishcraft because many people struggle with current 3D softwares. It is really complex and really difficult to learn. First of all, traditional mouse input, it is not intuitive. Every day when we interact with the object, for example, this mic, we don't use the mouse to click on it. We just simply grab it. So what if we can use natural input like gesture and voice commands to make 3D creation feel more easier? And next, designing instead of a flat 2D screen will make it hard to understand the space and scale. So it always happens that it looks right inside of the screen, but when it moving into 100% scale, full scale production, sometimes it will look too big or too small. So what if we can leverage XR technology to design directly inside of the 3D space, and so we can feel the environment, feel the spatial, having the spatial awareness inside of the space. Lastly, not everybody can visualize the ideas through drawing. So what if we can use AI to help us for the visualization? And combining all this, what if we could simply just use our voice and gestures in an immersive space with the assistance from AI to build our 3D world? So introducing Wishcraft is a tool that combines AI, XR, and multimodal input to revolutionize 3D environment creation. And so for example, I say, I want a world to be a kingdom, and the world will turn into the kingdom, and now I want to add a house. So I say, I want a house, and it pops up the house, I grab and place into the world, and now I feel the style is not my type, so I use hand sweep to change its style. After that, I feel I want to add a fountain. So I say, I want a fountain, and choose a style that I want, using hand sweep, grab it, and place into the space. Now I feel its location, its position is not right, so I come closer, grab it, moving closer to me. Now, after that, I feel I want to add more flowers into the wall. So I choose a flower that I want, use the spray gun to spray inside of the world. So with AI training, Wishcraft can transform ideas into 3D object and environments. What you see here is the voice to text using with AI, and I take text to object in, which is the function I write inside of the Unity demo to make user able to generate object using that function. And users just say what they want using natural language. For example, like this saying, I want a delicate blue flower with petals that have a soft gradient. And then the system will convert their speech to text and extract from the text to a generation prompt. And then using this generation prompt, the system will generate an image and transform into a 3D object. And this interface you guys see here is Triple SR. It turns text to 3D object. And to make you easier to view, this generation video is speed up. Actually, the actual original duration for this video, for one generation, it takes 3 minutes. So information architecture for XR is really different from traditional like screen-based software. It is more spatial, content-aware, and multimodal input. Also, extended reality requires a dynamic organization of information in 3D space, real-world anchoring, and interaction design. This accounts for user movement, depth perception, and environmental constraints. Now, I'd like to share a bit of my process. I start with conducting interviews to understand how people interact with the object in their daily lives. And then I test the workflow for text to 3D generation, and unfortunately, I failed several times for downloading the Comfy US 3D pack. So I switched to Tripod SR, and successfully, it proves that the text to 3D generation workflow is working, but each generation, it takes 3 minutes, and it's so long. So I decided to use pre-downloaded model to build my 3D inventory. And then I test the voice interaction using Meta Voice SDK. Like I said, make the cube red, and then it will turn red. And then I say, move the cube up, and it goes up. If I say, make the ball to green, it turns green. Next, moving into ideation, I start sketching out various gestures for different interactions. And then I train the system with AI to recognize the user intent, also extract entities from natural language input. Then I start with the lo-fi prototyping. I tried different variations for generating, changing, and manipulating objects. For example, I tried different ways for object generation and different approach to delete the object by using eraser or putting object into the trash can. Finally, I moved the whole project into mixed reality and scanned the room so the system can understand the real-world environment. I refined the function for 3D generation in mixed reality. And then I developed additional interactions for copy and paste, move, and clear all the objects in the world. After those tech-centered research, I developed 8 signature interactions. Users can use voice to create, hand swipe to change object, finger close to grab, fingers open to release, use grab and wrist rotation to move and rotate object, two-hand movement to scale object, use breakdown to copy, and use eraser to delete. I imagine the tool like Witchcraft will be designing for people who are not 3D modelers. Like, for example, product manager and creative director who have innovative ideas in their mind but really struggle to visualize them. And it is not just a tool, it's more of a versatile platform that can apply for numerous use cases, from interior to theme park design. And it is more targeting at early-stage rapid prototyping and planning. So in summarize, with Witchcraft, we can make 3D creation as easy as we're wishing for it. Throughout this process, I learned that I explore multimodal inputs throughout this project, and I will continue exploring the potential for designing for accessibility, for example, using eye tracking for hands-free control. And I also realized it is important to do rapid prototyping and user testing to quickly iterate our ideas. Most importantly, I learned do not abandon any idea just simply because of technical challenges, because we can always find alternative ways to show our concept. And thank you for listening, and special thanks to everyone who supported me throughout this journey. Yasmin and Miller for guidance and inspiration as my instructors, Homing and Wade for valuable technical support, Jenny, Todd, and Julian for insightful feedback on my presentation. And now I'd like to invite you to try Witchcraft. You can join me at the Immersion Lab upstairs for the Unity demo. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if we want to take a few questions, but I mean, that was, I hope that was interesting. We tried to give a nice flyover of process, but we will stick around in the immersion lab about 15 or 20 minutes after the event ends if you're interested. We'd love to see you up there and talk a little bit about if you have any questions about what we do here at ArtCenter. Yeah. Are there any questions? And if not, yes.
How long did you work on the project from inception, maybe even before you knew you had access to the immersion lab? Is this something you had thought about it before you started working on?
Yeah.
Actually, it starts from when I go to Adobe Design Storm. Like those 3 days with also under help from Todd and Jenny. I have like rough idea about those kind of concepts because I feel with XR and AI, it will make 3D creation much easier. But it's just rough idea. And then after that, I think maybe 1 to 2 terms after, I got a chance to take Topic Studio and then start developing this project to like more more complete version. And then for this, I think before the stage, I moved into mixed reality. I think I spent 6 weeks designing like the version before moving into mixed reality. And then keep refining this project last term and also this term to like trying to dive deep into like how to turn it into mixed reality because that would be more helpful than just using virtual reality version.
Yeah, so I mean, that's not a typical student project, you know, to go over so many consecutive terms, but what's been interesting in the immersion lab specifically, I think because of the medium, you know, of course, every tool that we're talking about is updated, you know, seemingly every month or two. So new tools, proliferation of tools, constantly adapting workflows. That space, there's a cohort of students that together, you know, carry projects through. So it's a portion of our enrollment, but there's always this vibrant group of students that are carrying projects through the immersion lab and then asking if they can continue some part of it in another class. So we really love that, to be honest. But yes, that's a great question. Yeah, all right. Anything else? It's late. We can wrap it up if we need to. But I really appreciate you all spending the day with us here at ArtCenter. Like I said, we have fondness for World IA Day and would love to have you all back again in the future. And thank you for joining us here. And I hope it was a great day. Yeah, thank you.